This Voices in Aging presentation is brought to you by Seniorly, the place to find your new home, featuring thousands of senior living listings including assisted living, memory care, independent living, and continuing care retirement communities. Seniorly, helping families and individuals find the right senior living options.
Hi, I'm Judy Ruff. I'm a certified senior advisor, and I am here to welcome Karen Sands, a wonderful expert about the longevity economy and has written many, many wonderful books. And we're going to have a little conversation today. And the first question I want to ask you, but first I'll say welcome to you, Karen.
I am so happy to be here. Hi, everybody.
So the first question I want to ask you to start our conversation is what made you take up the torch to get people to understand how to get paid what they're worth?
It's really a long travail, but the truth is that wherever I go, when we're in the social services arena, this is a constant issue. It's the white elephant that nobody wants to talk about, is that we don't value ourselves sufficiently, and even our field does not, as well as the outer society. This is true whether you're a futurist, whether you're a CSA, whether you're a PhD gerontologist, or you're a social worker. It doesn't matter. The issue is rampant and nobody wants to talk about it. But the reality is, here we are in the age rush, in the golden age of being silver or gray, right? This economy is exploding. It's going from 7.1 trillion to 13.5 trillion dollars in activity and services provided for the 50-plus market. That's boom time. So for us in the field, we need to understand what that means. We're talking about, one of the facts that I love is that we're going to need 5 million new jobs in just personal and home care. 5 million jobs by 2020. And we're in 2017. So here we have this boom paradigm, and yet the people in the field are not booming. So where's that disconnect? So as I went around the country and I'm listening to the questions that especially CSAs and others in the field of aging are asking, and there are many different versions, but when I put them all together, what I hear is that there is a disconnect between care and caring and profitability. So it's the age-old conflict between soul and money. There's this thing when we're all brought up in this kind of bubble of social services, that if you do good, if you do caring work, money, oh my God, that's not important and it taints it. Well, that's not true. We can't survive in this industry until we start valuing ourselves and valuing the work we do, which is critically important. The gero business is going up by 50% by 2022. So we need to deal with this topic. But what I find is, it's not just, I was just speaking the other day to a very large group of people in senior care. And there was this whole sense that, well, there's no way we can get paid more money. And the biggest complaint was poor staffing, poor quality staffing, and poor quality customer service. Well, if you think about it, if you step back, and you and I have been in business for a long time in big systems and smaller systems, so we know this is true. If you don't pay your staff, if you don't give them continuous improvement potential opportunities, they're not going anywhere. Why would they give quality customer care? The issues that face us all in the field, that again we're not talking about, is that we're feeling an increase in uncertainty. I mean, look what's happening with the ACA. Increase in competition. We're talking about so many people that could potentially enter this field, right? Well, you're not going to stand out and get recognized and get paid well One, until you value yourself, you value your skill sets. And until you get above the noise, there's going to be an awful lot more noise out there. We're not a sleepy field anymore. We're a gigantic, exploding sector that's enormous. So, I'm often asked too about kids, young people. Why would they enter the field? And to me, I'm going, oh my God, the opportunities have never been better in this field for young people. And we need cross-generation teams, et cetera, to deal with everything that's going on, since age starts at birth and goes forever, right? So we need them there. But why would they come into our field if they're not going to be paid well, if they're not going to see a future? So we as an industry have to deal with this issue. We have to restructure how we view our field and getting paid. There was a woman from the Department of Aging of Connecticut at this meeting, and I was fascinated. She was really having a tug of war about, well, how can we pay people? We can't raise costs. And I'm looking at, you don't understand. If you don't develop from the bottom up, you're going to be aged out. You're going to be left in the dust, because there's going to be so much competition that if you're not above the noise, which means high quality everything, you're not going to make it. It's not like the old days where, oh, I've got assisted living. Oh, everybody needs rooms. As long as I meet the bar, I'm okay. No, you have to go way above the bar. And for CSAs, because most of us, at least those that I've met, are pretty much solo entrepreneurs or small businesses. They don't even have time, to think about this, but they have to start now. And I can remember at the last conference we did in Washington, literally people jumped out of their seats in my session because they got, oh my God, I'm worth more. When you start owning that, it shifts everything else. Then it becomes a truly win-win. And I believe this is true across the entire sector. We have to look at this. We can't keep blaming this on poor quality staff. We just can't. It starts at the top. There's an old Chinese expression that it stinks from the head. So where are we as advocates and policymakers in our own field? We need to change that, and we need to change it before we get left behind. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, and that is so critical in so many regards. I mean, if we just look at one sector alone with the caregivers, and we have such shortages and such a problem with lack of training and things like that. So to me, it's salary, but it's also the investment of training into employees.
Exactly what I was getting at. Exactly. Yeah. And even leaders, continuous improvement is the only way to go. We can't keep up with the changes around us, much less in our own field, unless we are constantly engaging and improving and getting more learning and more skill sets. We have to keep going. We can't stop. We can't rest on our laurels. There's no time.
Right. And I've spoken to many people through the process of these VIA talks, and that thread of lifelong learning has really come up quite a bit. So, when you pair the two, oh, I'm a lifelong learner, well, then that should put you in even having more confidence about your value.
Exactly. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep being ahead of the curve, because what I see all around, and I mean top leaders all the way down to the people doing bedpans, there's so much uncertainty and low self-esteem that of course we're having issues of low quality. How could we not? Corporate America has traditionally now dealt with this. We're paying people, we're valuing people more. There's more to go, obviously, but it hasn't moved over to our field. And that's why I'm championing it. When I see people that have given their lives to this field, and nobody wakes up, at 7 and says, oh, I'm going to grow up to be a CSA or a gerontologist. It doesn't work that way, right? Some life event, some triggering event, as I had, moves us into the industry. And we go, oh, this is where I've belonged all this time. This is where it is, right? So we have to do more. We have to structure this differently. I don't want the excuses of, well, we can't charge more to our residents, or we can't charge more to men. That's not the answer. We have to restructure so that we can bring in all these young people. I want them taking care of me, right? And I want them to do it in the way they do, with innovation and creativity and looking at the future. Well, we can't get them if we don't give them reason to come in. We really can't.
That is a great argument. And you know, I hear so many people saying the only comeback that I've ever heard about the higher wage is the fact that, oh, I can't pay, I can't charge anymore to the client.
Right.
And, you know, and I think that old adage of you get what you pay for, when it comes to caring for our loved ones or for ourselves, we need to do a little rethinking that
Exactly.
that problem isn't necessarily the issue. And you're right, the restructuring of the business also is an issue.
Yeah, the business of aging has to shift, and you and I are at the edge of it, and I want to change that. That's why I'm so enamored is the wrong word. I have great respect for what you've done for CSAs. And I'll tell you, the CSA's aide that I met at the conference, but since here in my own state and as I travel around, are phenomenal. And they're so committed to the field. I'm thrilled. How are we going to get 5 million jobs filled by 2020 if we don't have CSA organization? I mean, to develop the people that can be out there on the front lines and make a difference. We can't do it otherwise. I don't think it's just going to get a PhD at school. It's being on the lines and with the people and understanding where this is going. And I think, you know, it's like everybody, you know, we get into our everyday lives and we get so pigeonholed and narrow viewed that way too many people in the field are just not seeing the big picture. So as a futurist and as a leading gero futurist, meaning the business of aging, really, the whole prospect of aging, I see it. And so my goal, as in raising the torch, is to not only lift the veil, but also to take a very big picture. So we see, where are we at the table in the field? You know, we're not little clogs or nuts and bolts. We're the ones making things happen. So we have to do this together. It's so critical. So one of the things I feel, again, the split between the care, quality care, and profitability, right, is that because we're going to have so much competition, much more than we have now. I mean, look at all the groups that have started, Aging 2.0, for instance. I mean, fantastic. It's all about the edge of innovation in our field, and mostly young people, actually. But so to do this, though, we have to stay above the noise. And in our field, and I'm not sure in your program, so you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not enough about how do you leverage the longevity economy. I mean, for me to walk in, which you know how I feel about this, I'm not going to tell CSAs about the longevity economy. I mean, give me a break. You've given them that kind of training and awareness. I don't need to do that, but I need to take them to that next step to say, look, if you want to make that money, if you want to be a top liner in the field, then you have to get above the noise. And part of that getting above the noise is you have to know what your why is. What is your why? I know my why. I've known it for years. Every time I try to run away from it, though, I have something come up or in that gets me right back where I belong, in the aging space. Just that's where I belong. So my why is to change and transform the story, the old story of aging, into the new story of age and agelessness and an ageless society. That's my why. Well, it leads everything I do. Everything has to keep me in that path, if you would, right? Well, each of us has to know your why. You know, I hear people, well, I'm doing this, and I'm saying in the field, I'm doing this, and I said, why? I don't know. Well, then why are you doing it? I remember I had, at the conference, I had this woman, she must have had 3 PhDs, right? And was thinking of going for another, and we had a session, and I said, why are you doing that? You need no more credentials. You need no more advanced degrees. You've got it lined up. The reason you're not being successful, she wanted to know how to market and get people interested in her programs for her senior center rather. Well, first of all, change the name, because you're not getting boomers going to senior centers. You're going to, adult centers, boomer centers, ageless centers, whatever, but not senior centers. That was the first thing that somewhere in this field we've got to change. That is such a turnoff to this demographic. I'm not saying beforehand, but to this demographic. So, but the question was, she didn't belong there. She was trying to sell programs that these people didn't care about. So take your degrees and let's get you in a new stream of the age space. Don't stay in a place, it's an expression I have is, don't stay on a dead horse. Go get a new horse and take a new ride. You can still be in the field. And as you do, you're getting closer and closer to realizing your why. And you'll know what to say no to. And then when people want what your why is, you're the only person to go to. So it's that comes first. The who, whether you want to do 50 plus, 40 plus, 80 plus, that comes next. It's the why you want to do it has to drive us. That puts you up. I'm considered an expert now, right, in this work, because I know my why. If I was just sort of floating around and doing things, right, I'm just a generalist like thousands of others. I want each of us that are dedicated and passionate about the future of aging and the future of the business of aging, which I want us to turn inside out, right? We need to be above that noise. And I'll do everything I can to make that happen. And that's why I'm carrying the torch. We have, I'm hoping at 73, 30 more years to go, I hope. I got a lot of things to do. I still am beating the clock, racing to do everything because I want to make sure I get it done before I leave. But that's true for all of us in the field. Most of us are in midlife. We've got a whole nother life to live in this next phase. Why do it struggling? Why do it devalued and depressed and feeling like, I'm not that important? Oh my God, we are so important. And to this new economy, we're going to make it or break it. I'm proud to be part of this. It's not just, oh, I know you are.
You've got me so charged up now.
Oh, good. Oh, good. We should be. We have so much to be doing. Because you see, I'm a little different than some people in the field. It's important to confront ageism clearly when we see it, just like we do sexism or racism or any kind of bigotry and hatred. And it's important to point it out so your boss knows that that statement was not cool. That was ageist. That's cool. But there's more. It's, okay, so now we know ageism is rampant. It's the last ism in corporate America to deal with, actually, and perhaps in our society. And now it's conflated with sexism for women growing older, so it's even more of a challenge, right? But the reality is our focus needs to be not just confronting it or pointing it out. It's giving the alternative solution, which to me is the ageless way. There's so much potential. That's what we need to be talking about the age-friendly culture that we want to create together. The ageism, we all know it's there. I guess it's like, in the early days of the women's movement, which I was very active in, we did point up sexism because nobody would cotton up to it and say that it existed. I think enough people now, since most of us in this country are above 40, we know ageism exists. And it's rampant in business and corporate America. We know that. We have to switch, not so much, it's not just diversity training that we need, which we do when it comes to ageism and sexism and racism. But it's this big picture view that needs to come forward. Let's change it to an age-friendly society, culture, paradigm shift. That switches everything when it becomes an intergenerational, age-friendly society. When we have ageless leaders. I mean, most of our leaders today, they're in their 50s and 60s. I think the range was from 50 to 59, most CEOs in America, right? So that's pretty powerful, right? We have to move that ageism, face it ourselves. Our inner ageist is really messing with us. So there's a lot of work to be done, but it's on the positive age-friendly side, not the, let's wave the flag and start a movement to stop ageism. I don't believe that that's where our energy should be. I really believe it's on the building side.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, Karen. So I want to proceed and ask you
Yes, please.
Another question. So when you're in business in the aging field, how do you stay in sync with the people who keep you in business?
For one thing, recognize the who then. Once you know your why, you've got that taken care of, right? Then who? Who do you want to go after? Now, for me, for instance, I did not enter the field wanting to work with 73-year-olds like myself, or 80-year-olds, or 100-year-olds. Now that perspective has shifted a lot for me, but my focus was boomers. I wanted to work with boomers, right? So I knew my who. Once you know that who, for instance, with boomers, and let me give you an example. Let's talk about women like us, right? We have never before in the history of time had this many women, powerful women, educated women, successful women, and women of all kinds entering menopause at pretty much the same time. So the importance of that is not just the physical changes that we go through, because it's just another phase like adolescence, but it's the internal work that has to be done now that's not been done before, because we're conflating in a good way the midlife shifts, the emotional, psychological, psychic, etc. gifts that come with menopause, and that pause time, right, is where we reemerge. So I often call myself the Baba Yaga of the aging space, because I want to carry that torch. I want to light that torch and hand it on to those that will come alongside me and after me to continue this work. It's so critical, and we need to do it together. So you need to stay relevant. Who are these people? I am not going to talk to boomers about just value added. That was the old thing in business. Just add value, add value. Of course we have to add value, but now it's about values. We need to know the values of who we say are our prospects and customers, and we need to speak into that, especially in the boomer market, and even more so in the baby boomer women's market. We need to know that we're speaking to them. Do you know, this stat blows me away. 91% of women, boomers, do not trust their trusted advisors. Do not trust their trusted advisors. So a word to all you CSAs, you're trusted advisors, just like Judy and I are. So that's really important. How do we gain that trust? Well, we certainly don't talk about things that don't matter to them. We have to talk about values. We have to be relevant. What's going on for them? Boomers and women alike, and now actually probably across all the generations, we're putting our dollars where our values are. If I offer a program, let's say, and I say I'm going to give 1%, I don't know if that's sufficient, I'm just using an example, 1% of my take to a charity versus someone who's not, I'm going to get flooded versus that other person, because the values matter. The values that we're doing give back, that we care about the climate, or we care about human rights, whatever it is. This generation's always been this way, right? Boomers have completely disrupted everything, and they are in fact transforming aging, right? But it's new. There's no game plan. There's no blueprint. So we're doing it all ourselves. And by being in midlife or in menopause or in this great big shift, I mean, most of us were brought to our knees in the Great Recession. All the dreams and possibilities that boomers had dissipated. They just disappeared. So many of us had to start again and say, okay, wait a minute. What really matters? What are our values, right? Why are we here? These existential questions. So when you market, when you speak, when you write, anything you do to offer to these people, you've got to come from that place. They don't stand for bullshit. Excuse me, I hope that's okay. But they don't stand for BS, right? They want it right where it's at, and it's got to be true and passionate and authentic and real.
You know, Karen, that raises a question in my mind. I've heard this stated where people want to do business with someone that they would enjoy having dinner with or a cup of coffee with, right? That feeling of comfort. So with that comes the trust, right? That sense of just being relaxed and not having that sense of any one of you wanting to take advantage of the other, but to have a mutual benefit. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I turn away people that I don't want to work with, not because I don't know what the word is, not because I want to discriminate, because I know we're just not going to jive. And I'll tell you the truth, for me, at 73, I don't have time. I don't have time to waste with people who don't want to do the work. You know, I don't get rank beginners, or if they're beginners, they're really deep old souls. So I get people that really want to dive deep and make things happen, and as fast as possible, obviously. So because I don't have time to waste, I don't want to work with people who don't care. That doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, and I want to work with people that let's see, you know, there's I forget what it was, but you're basically, if you look at the 5 people that you hang around with the most, you'll know whether they're lifting you up, you're staying the status quo, or you're going down the tubes. So if you aren't in the I'm raising them up and they're raising me up, then get rid of them. Really, because it's the only way we can move up. And that's the kind of people I want to do business with. And I want them to do business with me. You know, if they're in this for themselves, goodbye. Right? I want to collaborate. I want to cooperate. We don't have a lot of time left on the planet. We have so much to do. I don't want to leave this for my kids and grandkids and great grandkids. I need to take responsibility to change this. I don't want my kids worrying about me growing older. I want to set it up so that it's fine. Don't worry. It's all taken. You know what I mean? It's in our hands. It really is in our hands. It's our age rush, and it's our aging, and it's our responsibility.
Oh, that is marvelous. And I really think that sometimes we don't recognize that it's our individual responsibility. We're dumping it on, oh, it's society, it's the business culture,
or it's the gap.
Yeah.
The millennials versus the boomers. That's all media hype.
Right.
In fact, our values between just the boomers alone and millennials as a grouping, I know I'm stereotyping, but it's generally true. Our values are very, very similar.
Right.
You know, we may not present the same, but our values are the same. So, you know, I've been talking a lot about this and doing interviews on corporate America and what we have to do to deactivate ageism, and also to create an age-friendly intergenerational environment. And the reality is we all want the same thing. So we have to start doing intergenerational teams. We have to pair people up so it's not the boomer is blocking me, or the young one doesn't care, and doesn't show up. It's nonsense, absolutely nonsense. You give us all something that matters to us, and we'll get it done better together than we would separately. It's just the way it is. I mean, my whole virtual team is our millennials. Thank God. I'd be lost without them, and they'd be lost with my expertise and experience. So the two together, can't beat it.
No, it's beautiful music when generations work together, and and different personalities and all the color that's added based on everyone's differences.
Exactly.
As opposed to looking at it as problematic.
Exactly.
Oh, this has been a great, great conversation, Karen. I thank you so much. I think you've really given, that business owner or that worker in a smaller business something to really think about, and to also look at themselves, look at their own value, and look at the people that they are choosing to work with, and how that, becomes a nice, lovely, simpatico situation.
Exactly.
Well, you're
Well said.
delightful, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes.
See you in
Thank
November.
You. Me too.
Bye-bye, Karen.
Bye.
The Voices in Aging sessions were brought to you by the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. Check us out online at www.csa.us for educational and certification opportunities.